when we're just starting out with an elevation and a couple of plans and want to start putting a sheet together, we come down to Sheets, right-click, New Sheet. And then what we'll be doing this afternoon is adding our own architectural D 24 by 36 inch title block that we will then load into this view, but we're going to go with the big one for right now. Okay. When we plot from one of the sheets, which is actually this whole area is a sheet out here, and we put a title block on it. When Revit plots a sheet, it plots everything that's on it. So if we had drawn a line somehow out here, and as I plot this sheet, Revit's going to plot this whole rectangle and try to fit that onto the 24 by 36 inch sheet of paper and reduce the scale accordingly. So we want to keep everything here inside the rectangle of the title block. Don't have random text and dimensions and stuff out here. Just the way it works. Keep everything within the title block margins. When we do drag a view in, framing plan, hopefully a rectangle. Okay, there we go. Got some shadows turned on, that kind of stuff. To be able to change the crop boundaries, just so they don't like overlap onto other views, I need to have the crop region visible, and I can double click on here and then control how much shows up. And I really like to leave a half an inch or so around what you want. You can leave the crop margins large, but then they like overlap each other on the sheet, and it's hard to tell which one you're dealing with. So I tend to keep them cropped down so I have one next to another, but not overlapping each other.
An important concept to understand here is
we can deal with this view in two different ways. One is when we click out here and make the sheet the active place where we're just moving stuff around, then I can select this view and move it around. And that's pretty expected. If I'm inside the view, double click, and now everything in here is active, and I can erase walls and create furniture and that kind of stuff. If I'm in there and I move the box, it moves that bounding rectangle relative to the geometry. So there's a choice of how you want to deal with that. And when you're fine-tuning a sheet, trying to make everything fit and line up, sometimes you have to do a little bit of one and a little bit of the other. But for the most part, I treat views out here just as graphic objects on a page that's going to get printed, and I go back to the plan itself to do the actual work of design. Okay, we're out here. We have a couple of choices of how this appears, and almost always, once the view is on the sheet, you want to keep cropping the view. We don't want to see like the elevation markers floating out in space, but we don't want to see it. So we'll say crop it, yes.
But make the borders visible, no.
And that will make the lines disappear. The view titles themselves, once we're out in this active space, and you can tell you're here because your title block will be its full intensity. If we double click inside the view to make it the active view, then this dims down to halftone, meaning it's inactive. We can't work on anything there. So I'm going to click back out here. So now I can just move stuff around on this page. The title, then you can move, line it up however you choose. If you click once in the view, then this little dot comes on and you can decide where your line wants to be. Some people like it all the way across. Some people like it just as long as the text. It doesn't matter to me. I would just say be consistent. Crop views, crop regions. I'm going to skip the annotation cropping for a while. Revit is set to fill this information in. Once you do it once for the project, it'll fill it in for all the different sheets that you create. This information comes from a couple of different places. Project information is all contained in Manage Project Information. And this will be where we can, and some of these will show up on the title block and some of them won't. There are other uses for them. Cancel, let me zoom in here a little more. Project information. We can see where it says owner to start with. Some of these are controlled by the project and some of them are controlled by the individual sheet. So what we have at the project level are the issue date, project status, which at this point is not on this sheet yet. The owner, this is set up for commercial use. For our use in the education business, you might think of the client name as Art 562 Professor Weisberg. Okay, didn't spell it right, so I can double click on that. Esberg. And at the project level, this will now show up on every one of these title blocks that we put in there. We change it. If we change it up here in project information, it will change on all the sheets in this model. Not all the sheets on your hard drive, just all the sheets in this model. Same thing. So project name, let's just call that Schneider Hall, or this is going to be my kitchen renovation. Kitchen renovation. Okay, kitchen renovation. And then this is the name of the sheet, which is specific to the sheet, so it'll show up over here in properties. So I think that's all we really need to deal with at the project level. But the point is, when I go to make another sheet, I'm right-clicking, new sheet, use the same title block. Then in that sheet, we already have Art 560 Professor Weisberg kitchen renovation. Then we have sheet-specific stuff, which makes sheet 102 different from sheet 101. Let's start with this 102. It names them in the sequence that they're created. If we want to change this back to 101, we can just double-click and change it right there. And we'll get an error code.
If you already have a sheet A101, Revit will say, no can do, try again with a new number.
So we can change that information here, or we can select this title block and fill that same information in there, which is a little easier to see. Let's say the sheet named is framing plans. Sheet issue date, that's today. Drawn by BG. Nobody checked it. Nobody checked it. Just a space. Nobody designed it. Nobody approved it. Let's see, what am I doing here? It looks like I do have put in a space to overwrite designer there. So now that information is here in this sheet. Project number. When I started my own business, 2003, and I just started
numbering my projects.
2003-01, 2003-02, and then I got to the next year in 2004, and just sort of worked up that way. So pretty much every firm has their own internal way of referring to this for billing and keeping track of stuff and not having to put the full name of projects in there. So project number, what's this, 20, 22, 01 is the project number. And then the information will go from here back to the project information little table of information there. So that's been added in here. You say, okay. And then when I go to the next sheet, that project number has been included in there as well. Issue date, 12/12/22. Issue date, this one looks like for the whole set. We'd have to create another field and place it here to pick up the actual date for the sheet, which is something we just simply don't need to get involved with here. We also have, for individual views, let's go back to the framing plan view. All the choices for this view are here to make and be consolidated. And whatever we do here shows up back in sort of in our plan view, and whatever we do in the plan view shows up here. It's the same view. It's got a scale. We have that display level, which we can change from coarse to fine to pick up the detail in the walls as we need. I can skip that. We can rotate it on the sheet if we want to for some reason. We have all our visibility graphic overrides, turning categories on and off, whether they're model categories or annotation categories or things that have come in from if I had an AutoCAD, oh, there's the AutoCAD drawing that's actually underneath this, being able to turn its layers on and off for this one view. And we went through these earlier. And I guess the one thing I like to call your attention to, now that we're putting these onto sheets that other people are going to have to look at and understand besides just whoever created them and know them intimately, is we can change the actual view name here is level 1 framing plan. Level 1 might not have meaning to somebody in the outside world. So we do have a choice of having a different title on the sheet than we do over here in the project browser. So the title on the sheet, which now is level 1 framing plan, I might just change to, let's use caps lock, first floor framing plan. And then that changes to that, and we can click on here and drag the button and make that a little clearer for whoever has to be looking at it. So what I want to do today is to take this title block, and let's just do a dimension. That's 3/6, that's the 42. And this is 2'6". We want to make this, instead of 2'6" by 3'6", make it 2 feet by 3 feet, because that's what the biggest we can do over here
on our plotter.
Something we haven't done yet, we practiced modifying
Types of things.
like a door edit type, where we can change its dimensions. For a title block, what we're going to do is sort of go a little deeper than that, which is it's called editing the whole family, just editing the basic geometry of this title block. Do that, you select it in any view, doesn't matter where, and go to edit family.
In properties, we control some aspects of a thing, like location. Edit type lets us modify the proportions.
And then this is drilling down one further level to affect the geometry of this whole family. We end up in an environment that looks very similar, but it's called the family editor. And it's a little editing environment just to modify the families in the model. For instance, if we had a door family that was just a rectangle, and we wanted to make a rectangle with a circle in it, this would be an edit family operation,
where we are changing the very arrangement of the elements that make up the family. We start with one family, edit it, and save with a new name, creating a new family.
We're making a fundamental change to the geometry of the object. And that's what we're doing here. Okay, right now we have 3'6" by 2'6", and we want to go to 3'0" by 2'0". And there's nothing holy about this 24 by 36 that I keep talking about. It's just a very standard size for prints. It's the biggest we can get off of this one. Anything smaller feels like it's tiny, so
this feels like a good size for us to standardize on.
So now we're in the family editor. First thing I'm going to do is get rid of a couple things that we just don't need. And one is Autodesk. We don't need Autodesk. We don't need no stinking Autodesk. Just pick it and get rid of it. And let's pick this as well. And, we don't need all these consultant addresses and stuff. I just get rid of all of them. Getting a little dicier down here. For student project, we really don't need to have a place for revision levels. We're not putting out 6 different levels of revision spaced 2 weeks apart as the project continues and gets ramified. So if you want to just get rid of these, you certainly may. But we will be doing some exercises with revisions
in the spring,
just to know how they work. So let's leave this in here. Let's leave it. It looks professional as well. And then client name, I would say we just leave those the same. Client name, understanding that that's like Art 562, Professor Weisberg. Project name, like Assignment 5. What we don't want to do is to put anything in here that is tied to any particular class or professor or project number. Well, there's 2 things going on here with the word project number and the actual project number that shows up. This is just a piece of text, text 1/8 inch high. This over here is called the label. And a label is something that goes and gets information from somewhere else, either from the properties of the sheet or from the project information up here in Manage Project Information. It's sort of information that's coming from somewhere else being displayed here, and then this text is just telling us what that is. I don't think we need this, either of those. Be nice to have the date. We don't need check by. And you can decide whether you want to have drawn by here and then fill in your name or your initials, or if you're going to do something up here, Jackson Hinton Design Emporium, and then we know who did that. But even so, you might have all these people working for you, and you have the name of the firm up here in big letters, but you still might want to know who the actual person who worked on this sheet was. So I'd say we leave that in there. And there's nothing special about any of these lines, but let's get this to the right size first, and then start working with maybe some design of that. And there's no like 0, base point. Just this can be anywhere we want to place it in the family editor. I'm going to just move all of this stuff down 6 inches to get from 2.6 to 2 feet. I'm just going to actually I'm going to window it like this, and then move MV, click, and actually that's wrong. Sorry. I don't actually want to move these lines down. I want to move just the ones that are entirely contained in it. So I'll grab these like this, move 6 inches, not feet. And we can see when you select that line in properties, you can see that it's 2 feet long. So that worked. I'm going to do the same thing, move these guys in 6 inches. 6 inches. And make sure that that's 3 feet. So I have 3 feet by 2 feet, and that's just what I want. You'll notice that in the title block that came in the template we started with, this top border is bigger than this bottom border, and it look like these two might be the same, but they're really quite different. So I want to have a consistent set of margins. I'd like to have a 1/2 inch here, a 1/2 inch here, a 1/2 inch here. And then if you'll notice on all these bound drawing sets, you always need to leave some room for the stapling and the binding, at least 1.5 inches, or when it's clipped into one of these, you don't want to have drawing numbers and stuff inside that binding edge. So let's say that this is going to be 1.5 inches. So how to do that best? Since these are all different, these border lines, I'm frankly just going to get rid of them and just offset in the direction, the distances that I want. And the easiest way to get rid of those is to hit Tab, is to hover over one, hit Tab, that'll select all the ones that are connected, Tab, click, delete, get rid of that, delete. And then from my outside that's known, offset in to make the distance that I want. So I'll do offset 1/2 inches the distance. I do want to copy these. So we'll do that, and that, and that. And then I want to go 1.5 for the other one. And that'll be that. Then I can use the trim tool to clean up the corners. And that did a couple of things. It made it look more, well, it got the margins to be identical, which is always sort of a plus, graphically speaking. And it picked us up, I don't know, 15 square inches of space that we can use for the drawings if we need them. You'll find as you're putting your projects together, there's always this sort of a squeeze to get things to fit and to line up and look good. And the more room you have to do that, the better. And since we're going crazy with this, let's get rid of all this line work. And just start, Control Z, sorry. And just start with your own design. I'm basically just getting rid of lines. Title block information is invariably arranged vertically along the right side or across the bottom. A lot of times people do that if their building is just going to fit this way
horizontally,
but not if we bring the title block in. So then you put it across the bottom. The usual options are
having a vertical title block with maybe some of the elements turned sideways,
or this way. And then in a lot of engineering firms, people realize, boy, that's a lot of white space we could be using. So they have just a little tiny title block down here with the information, so they can be drawing or putting notes or whatever in that space. So it's not as classy, but it makes better use of space. You get to decide how you want to do that. The only limitation here in terms of positions, we want to keep the word date and the parametric date, the one that we've entered in project information, to keep those two together, and to keep drawn by and this one together, and to keep these pieces of text along with the thing that they're referring to. But apart from that, this all can be pretty much anywhere except over here, because this is where they're going to get stapled, and you won't be able to see over there, and nobody does it.
And the sheet number, which is the main navigational tool for moving through a drawing set, is always in the bottom right-hand corner.
Oh, let's say we don't need this many revision labels, which you don't. We can drag that up and make it smaller. Let's say 6. Oh, and that's got some lines around it too. So it's up to you to think about how you would like to deploy these. And I think another point of this is we can change these fonts to be something more than just Arial,
which we were experimenting with on Monday.
For instance, client name is in the text type called tag label, 3/8 of an inch high. And if we edit type, we can see that's set up to be Arial and 3/8 of an inch high. Let's make that something different so the client feels like they're special. So I'm not going to duplicate. I'm just going to change. Right now, I'm just going to change this one. Tag label Arial. I'm going to go down to, what did we like? I like Bedoni. So you just make the client name look like that. And so these three all had the same, were all the same tag label
text type.
If we want this to be a bold font, that's 5/8 of an inch high, it's bigger. That's sort of the most important piece of information on this sheet, is what's its name. We could either edit type and duplicate, or just edit the type itself and change it to Arial bold so we can really see it, and just gets fatter and a little wider. You have to bear that in mind when you're laying things out. We can import any kind of image you want into that. It can be your portrait, it can be a logo that you've done and saved as a TIFF or a JPEG or something or other. One of the fun things about being in school is you can do pretty much anything you want. You're young and you're in school and you're artists, so go crazy.
It's a blank slate. Do whatever you want as far as design goes.
If you need inspiration,
take the letters of your initials as separate pieces of text and see what you can do.
Arrange them in some interesting fashion, just as a starting point. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a request on the floor to ask how you do areas of color that would then have text on top of it.
Go to
Create, Filled Region, and then we have our basic drawing tools here. So if you pick a rectangle and drag it and say OK, we have types of filled regions, and the types will correspond to their colors. If you select it, go to Edit Type, make it solid, make it the color you want, then you have a magenta rectangle. If we wanted to have a magenta background for our text,
so I'll just move the text on top of the rectangle. Let's explore how multiple objects behave.
Let me just go to that again. Create, Filled Region. Let me edit type, duplicate, Filled Region 3. I'm going to change that to green. These are nice color combinations. You see this one's on top of here. If you want to have, as far as I can tell, text always stays on top.
It turns out that we cannot adjust the display order of other elements, what appears on top of what, in the family editor the way we can back in the model. The most recently created appears on top.
Yeah. I guess I would come back again to Revit not being a supremely capable graphic design tool. And I guess the point of this is,
Revit means revise it.
You made a start in designing your own title block. You can save that, do it, come back, change it again. They will all update as you go. I mean, it can be a continuous sort of a process. Let's stop the design part and we'll just accept what we've got so far and use it, bearing in mind that it might need further refinement as the week goes on. So I'm just going to move stuff around a little tiny bit. What we started with was the E-sized 30 by 42 title block. We have scaled this down considerably. We need to give this a new name. So we're going to go to File, Save. And instead of this E1 30 by 42 horizontal, we're going to change that to, let's say, to Architectural D. Let me do this in Arch D 24 by 36 horizontal. If you all can see that. So it's very clear what's going on. So regardless of, so Arch D means 24 by 36, 24 by 36 means 24 by 6, and horizontal means horizontal. And we'll save that. So I've saved it to disk, so it's there if we need it again. I stuck it in documents, but I strongly suggest that each of you create an Art 559 folder to keep all of this kind of stuff together. Now, one more thing. It's been saved to the hard drive, but it's not yet been brought into our model. So then we say, since we're done editing it for now, we'll say load into project and close. Okay, save the project. And you can see what that looks like now compared to the other. If we would just like to replace this guy with this one, I can select it, and then like any other, these are two families of the same category, and in properties, just go over to pick the one that I want. And then when I go to create a whole new sheet, I go to Sheets, New Sheet, and now the ArchD title block is in our model. I can just, that one's selected already. It's the most recent. Like, oh, I've got some little tweaking to do, but that's that. And here's our new sheet that big. If at this point I realize that, oh, I should have gotten rid of that line, I can go back into the family editor, erase the line, load into project and close, save it. Yes. Overwrite the existing version, and we're out. Something I just discovered in terms of stacking things is when you're working in a view, you can indeed move 2D objects on top of each other, but you can't do that in the family editor. I knew I wasn't going completely crazy, but that's the deal. We can either plot from a sheet, or we can just be back in the drawing and be and plotting from there. Let's do it from the sheet first. And I think, again, I want to plot to a PDF to start with. It gives you a way to preview and make sure everything is working right before you actually stick it on the plotter and use paper and ink.
So that's Control P.
Or file print, either one. And we get this
dialog
where we select the printer that we want to use. And then a couple of choices. I'm just going to work down from the top. I'm just going to go from here to here. And we just want to basically tell Adobe that we're working with an architectural D sized sheet. That's all we need to do here. And then skipping this for a moment, we tell it, what do you want to print? do you want to print the current window, which in the case of a plot sheet means this 24 by 36 inch rectangle. We don't actually ever pick the points the way you do in AutoCAD to define a window. Or the visible portion of the current window, which means like all of this white space as well. Let's pick current window and just go to preview. That's okay. So there we are with that one thing fitted to the sheet. But you'll notice that it's these edges, these outside edges should be right on the edge of the paper, so we don't even see them. So that by the time this gets bigger, it's at the exact same scale we want. So I'm going to close that and Control P again. And this is when we need to go down to setup. So we've sort of gone through here. We also need to go to setup to tell Adobe, don't fit it to the page, which is a shrink it and leave some margins, but print it at its 100% size. 24 by 36 image to 24 by 36 inch sheet of paper. And then I'll try it again. I'm also going to say center it just to make sure those are aligned correctly. And I'm going to say no for the time being. And then preview. And now we see, we just got the little tiny bit of edge right there, and we got a ½ inch here, ½ inch here, 1.5 inches here, and 1.5 inches here. So this is exactly what I'm looking for. And I can either close and do it again, or just go directly to print. And okay. I love this. Okay, got to go into Adobe Acrobat license. Has either expired or not been activated. Control P. Adobe PDF. Desized image. Current window. Setup. 100%. Center. Landscape. Okay. Then okay. And one of the tricks here is just making sure that you're putting it somewhere where you really know where it's going. So I made this folder in documents called Art 559 PDFs. And I'll call this plotting. I'll go there. I'll call this plot demo. Save. And this is where we get to preview this actually in Acrobat instead of just the Revit approximation of what it's doing. And sometimes it just hangs. And of course it does it, during like the plotting demonstration. But whenever something like this happens, that it's just, it just stops. I go to hide, meaning basically bag that and try it again. So what do you think about the elections? Huh. Come on, make this work. PDF, current window. Preview. Let's go to preview and print from there. Looks good. There we go. Took a while. Okay. But here's the image on the sheet and looks just looks just right. Identical borders, north, south, and east, and a wide one on the west. And with my new title block. So, anybody got a thumb drive? Oh, here we go. I want to save this over to my flash drive. Yeah, save. Okay, we can close that. You know, this is a total pain. Let me figure out how to print over Wi-Fi without
Printing over the internet.
Something we found over here is that if you use Acrobat to print it, it's going to make you log into Adobe all over again, that kind of stuff. So you can just drag your file from here just over into Chrome, which can print it. Now let's make sure we got the page size right. There's got to be a print menu somewhere, right? Print, there we go. Let's just make sure we got our page size right. Architectural D, 600 DPI, scale, custom, 100. We keep wanting to do the 100% all the way along the line. So when this prints out, this will actually be at 1/4 inch equals a foot. And right now we have 3 different kinds of paper. And it's a little confusing about which is which and telling the plotter which. I think we're just going to settle on the middle level, which is bright white but not glossy, and just use that consistently throughout. Whatever kind you tell the plotter it has in it, it puts the ink down differently. So use too much or too little. And we found that sort of pulling it out as it comes means that when it gets cut off, the knife will jam up the paper.
So let the weight of the paper hold it out of the way of the cutter and just let it fall down into the bin.
There you are. I mean, it's crisp as can be. Our even margins all around the edges. I think we did everything we had to do.